Other interesting political news, you have Ford making an offer to the United Auto Workers, which is, I would say, one of the biggest political groups of all time based on how much money they give. Now, the downside is the United Auto Workers, in terms of their total compensation, and again, I know this also includes benefits, but cost of shareholders regardless. They want about, again, the estimates that they want about 70 to 80 billion dollars over the next 4 years from each of the big three being Ford, Chrysler, and General Motors. And it looks like Ford made an offer. Now, the contract would provide our employees with a 15% guaranteed combined wage increases and lump sums and improved benefits over the life of the contract, the company said. Wages, including overtime and lump sum bonuses for Ford UAW, United Auto Workers, represented hourly workers would make an increase from $78,000 on average in 2022 to $92,000 in the first year of the contract. This according to Ford. Now, that already sounds like it's more than many of these people deserve. I mean, most Americans would love to make not $70,000 a year. I believe last time I checked, the average income in the United States was more towards the 30s. Now, one might think, this is coming from a auto branch advisor, Kristen, saying, quote, one might think that of these UAW contracts as a set of 3 large purchase orders to secure labor needed for the assembly, future vehicles, parts, and components, contracts that are collectively worth roughly 70, 80 billion over the course of the first 4 years. Now, it looks like that's a pretty penny. And again, I think the UAW is going to turn down that offer because right now they have 10 demands and they are quite large. Now, some of the top demands that usually get headlines, the union has proposed a 46% wage increase over 4 years, a 32-hour work week, while still getting paid for working 40 hours. That might be one of the greatest definitions or the greatest metaphor for a union. I want to only work 32 hours, but I want you to pay me for 40 hours. That's the best metaphor I've heard of, actually. I know it's early in the month, but perhaps in the past 30 days when it comes to unions. Now, they also want to have retiree health care coverage to all. They want to have a restoration of cost of living adjustments, expanding pensions, and more. That is a lot. And there are a couple things where I think Ford will acquiesce. And there are a couple of these things that I think could be beneficial for both sides. But at the end of the day, some of these asks are just so audacious and disgustingly not feasible in 2023. Like pensions. Name one private company that does pensions. They don't. I know of one in Texas, and I may not know sports ball teams, but I do know a thing or two about business. It's just not a thing anymore. It was a great idea, don't get me wrong, the idea of a pension is phenomenal, but they're no longer fiscally feasible for any company that actually wants to be financially responsible and make a profit. They are famous in the public sector, but that is almost corrupt, morally vacuous things where you actually have public sector unions hire, or rather, they pay and get people elected. The people elected then turn around and then give them these huge, enormous benefits. Perhaps the definition of corruption, yet no one seems to call it out, hardly. But they want all these benefits, and I understand when I have critique when I talk about the UAW, when I talk about these topics, some people talk about how the executives got a high amount of pay during the bailouts in 2009 when they went bankrupt. And I agree, taking a big paycheck during inopportune times, that's not good optics at all. And there are certainly some issues on both sides, but the UAW just seems to want every penny. And it's one of those things where they've crippled the companies multiple times throughout the centuries. GM, General Motors, has gone bankrupt multiple times since Billy Durant founded the company when he first combined Oldsmobile and Buick way back in the day. And you look at the analysis of why GM and Chrysler both went bankrupt in 2009, some of the largest single line item costs were pensions, medical benefits, as well as all of these huge costs of wages for the employees, paying someone $65, $75 an hour to put a tire in a car. Which, again, I know that does include their health care. It's not just how much cash is going to their pocket, but that big number is what's affecting the shareholders, is what's affecting the people who buy the cars, because that cost is being put into the vehicle. Someone has to pay for it. And right now, if you look at the business field of the automotive community, Mary Barra, the CEO of General Motors, she's trying to cut every penny possible. She actually went to the salaried employees at corporate, and last 2 fiscal quarters ago, I believe, They actually asked people, hey, we have tough times. We're trying to cut every penny. We're trying to cut literally a couple $1 billion from our budget. We don't want to fire you, but we would be willing to buy you out of your contract. Is anyone willing to come forward and just volunteer? So instead of just firing them, they would actually pay them. Let's say if you have a 1-year contract to make an X amount of dollars, and you're about halfway through the contract, they would buy you out for the whole contract, and then you would go find gainful employment somewhere else. That was one of the ideas she's had. And again, they're trying to cut every penny and trim the fat from the budget because they're competing against Tesla. They're competing against Honda and Toyota. All make more reliable vehicles and all do not have unions weighing them down. And all of them also, you could also argue the culture of Kaizen and all the different things that Toyota does, where Toyota, culturally speaking, is a phenomenon where on the assembly line, they actually encourage workers, hey, if there's an issue on this car, let us know. We're going to stop the assembly. We're going to fix that car right now. As opposed to General Motors or Ford or, Chrysler, they just say, go, 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 McDonald's style. Get the car through the assembly, make a note, maybe we'll fix it on the way out. They usually don't. But it's a whole different cultural difference as well. And then, of course, the reliability of the actual parts come into play. And I do appreciate your feedback. If you're part of the union or you're part of the executive, I'd love to hear your experience so you can put that into the next video because more data, the better. And I love stories as well. But it's one of those issues where someone in the comments a couple weeks ago when I talked about the latest negotiation with Ford, actually it was General Motors, they noted, I said the vehicles were less reliable. They noted that, well, yeah, that's because GM, the company, also chooses cheaper parts. Well, one of the reasons they have to do that is because they have less money because the cost of labor is more expensive. The cost could only be moved around so much. You're moving it around. So there are a lot of reasons where I don't think it's actually financially feasible to have unions in 2023 in a global economy. At the time when GM was the pinnacle of the automotive community, well, the big three, Ford, GM, Chrysler, back in the 1950s, they were on top of the world. Detroit was the richest city on the planet, most prosperous city ever. And the union saw how good everything was. At the time, GM and those companies could afford these great benefits for all these unions because they were quite literally the only game in town. The United States was the only country that was not blown up. So Germany couldn't make really a lot of cars. Same with Japan. So for a long time, U.S. kind of had a monopoly for vehicles. But subsequently, competition came along and Japan just makes some of the most bulletproof vehicles on the planet. My family, and again, I'm talking about the best ROI on the planet, buy an internal combustion engine. It'll just last forever. You have my family's Honda Accord. It's lasted over 20 years. And it's still working perfectly because it's a Honda Accord. It's awesome. Now, that's also my point of contention with EVs, but another topic for another time. It's one of those issues where the cost is more, the reliability is not as great. And again, the profits that they're making now, the union's seeing the short-term profits, because right now, GM is making good profit. They have to reinvest that not only into the new transformation, because Mary Barra specifically wants to be EV 100% for Cadillac by 2030, and the whole fleet of, Cadillac, Buick, you also have Chevrolet, and then you have GMC. She wants all of them to be EV by 2035, which might sound far away, but in business, that's just around the corner. And that's going to be a huge fiscal investment. Not just for the research and development to hire the engineers and the computer engineers you're going to need for EVs, but also for the new factories. You're going to need whole new tooling to put those cars together. That's going to be a lot of money. Also, you have a lot of uncertainty right now. You have 40-year hyperinflation. No one knows what's going to go on with the economy. There's a lot of political reasons people have uncertainty. But that's another thing. Companies, they're trying to put some money aside because some things can go wrong. The only reason Ford did not go bankrupt in 2009 when the other two did of the big three, one, they took out a big loan. So that was pretty convenient. But the union did acquiesce a little bit and they decreased their benefits. So they came together and actually were able to make it work temporarily. Now, that being said, Ford's cost of goods is still pretty expensive. The F-150 has gotten so expensive, it's basically a house for most people. Ironically, what used to be an actually little cheap farm vehicle is now, $60,000, $70,000, $90,000 for a damn truck these days. I don't know how much longer this relationship can happen. And again, you have a point of contention. It's like a divorce attorney or divorce lawyer. Every time you have a third party involved who their entire existence and they benefit when there's conflict between the employees and the UAW. That's their whole value prop is, oh yeah, we'll come in and make it better. They don't. But their whole job, it actually has benefits to being in a confrontational situation. So it's one of those things where Ford is making an offer. And I'm not a gambling man, but if I were a gambling man, I would say the UAW is going to laugh at that offer. They're going to they're going to demand even more. And all these unions have voted they are willing to strike. They're not striking right now. They voted saying, are you willing to? They are overwhelmingly saying they are willing to strike. So subsequently, I can't help but think that's another big curveball that's going to hurt the industry. It's going to be great for the competition, though. How long will they be able to keep this going? Will they come to an agreement? I'm not a gambling man, but as the Magic 8 Ball might say, the outlook is not so good. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in again. Also, trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of September. I know it's a tall order, but if you click that button, I would greatly appreciate it. Also, don't forget to take the time to like and comment. The feedback is greatly appreciated, especially the critical feedback, as I try to make the show better and better, and as well as try to improve myself more and more to make the show an experience more pleasurable for the user and the fans. Also, don't forget to take the time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.